And talking about the next nominee, wow. You can only be first once. It's like your first sweetheart. And the 2008 Lady Volleyball team, the Lady Devil Volleyball team, they were the self-proclaimed history makers, and a lot of them are sitting right back there. And of course, Coach Blankenship is sitting right up here. And they were just fantastic. This team put together perhaps the single greatest season in women's school history. In 2008, we won the state 1A championship in volleyball, and not just won it, but it was dominating. For Swain, it marked the first ever state championship on the women's side as they finished with an incredible 30-1 overall record, as you heard Toby mention earlier. And this win capped a 5-year run of just sheer domination for this Lady Devil volleyball program, with a compiled record of 126 wins and only 12 losses in the Smoky Mountain Conference. Folks, that is domination, winning 5 straight regular season and conference tournament championships, and compiled a 76-match winning streak in conference play. To put that in perspective, the senior class never lost to a conference opponent. That's something to be proud of, ladies. In 2008, the Lady Devils did not lose a single game of any of their playoff matches, including the state championship where they swept Pender County, as you saw in the video, 3-0 to win the title. Not a single one of their 31 matches went to 5 games, and 21 of their 30 wins were 3-game sweeps. The 2008 state champion volleyball team, a 2015 inductee into the Swain County Athletic Hall of Fame, and without a doubt, 100% Maroon strong. Coach, if you would come forward and accept this award for your team and all those who participated. And yes, it's your turn.
Good evening. When we were watching that video, I got excited again. My blood pressure started rolling. I was like, whew, that was exciting. And even more than that, for some of them, it's been almost 7 years since I've seen some of them. And so it was so nice tonight when we had dinner to come back and get to see them. And girls, I still want to tell you this, we're still the prettiest team in the conference 7 years later. Y'all are beautiful. You know, we have never really been to a Hall of Fame induction because I have always been playing volleyball on a Thursday night, so I had no idea what I was supposed to say at this event. So I asked Coach Frank, I said, what am I supposed to say? I've never had the opportunity to see one of these, and when you're talking about a team, what are you supposed to say? And he said, just talk about the team. So at that point, when you look back and you heard all the things that they were saying, how do you sum up all of those things? So I frantically started writing down all of the things, all the memories that I could have. And my husband was just like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing down stuff for my speech. And he said, you don't have that long to talk. So I'll try to keep this brief and try to sum everything up. There is no way that I could possibly enlighten everybody about the journey that we had that year, because it was just so extraordinarily awesome. But I'll try. And when I was trying to figure out a way to sum all this up, there's a couple of things that kept coming to my mind. These thoughts just kept reoccurring, and I was like, okay, so I got it. I've got to use these. Recently, I was given both a book and a devotional called 1,000 Gifts. And those of you who haven't ever read that, I suggest it. It's about finding joy in life moments and having an attitude of thankfulness. And tonight I've heard, Jeff has talked about that. I've listened to everybody say thank you to all the things that this place has given them. And the other part of that was I started thinking about defining moments within that season. And I'm not talking about the game-to-game stuff. I couldn't tell you any of those stats. And Mr. Burrell can attest to that because he's always the one who has to keep up with that for me. But another thought came to mind, and it actually came with a piece of advice that came from Toby. As we headed into that last week, we had a Tuesday game, and that was the regional finals against Raleigh Charter. And if we won that when we were going on to state, well, we made a pact as a team that we were not going to talk about anything ahead of the one game we were playing. And we agreed to it. And the kids, I know, told their parents, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. And because I heard the parents tell me they said that. But Toby had to do some things like in preparation for what was going to happen. He and Coach Frank, there were pictures that had to be made, and I hadn't even had a team picture made yet. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, we hadn't done anything yet? He goes, we have to do this. But he put his arm around me, and he said, Sonia, don't get so wrapped up in all of this stuff that you forget to enjoy the ride. And it was probably the best advice that I had through that last stretch of that week. I think his translation was actually, hey, you little control freak, you need to let me take care of some of this stuff so you can enjoy this. But either way, whatever translation you want to go with, that actually afforded me the mindset to really enjoy the moments that would transpire over the next week. Moments are about perspective, and while a lot of the moments that I'm going to share tonight are from my perspective, each young lady that sits out there tonight had a different role on that team, and probably one of the key elements of that team was that they were all great role players. Whatever role they had on the team, whether it be the leading star out there, the starting six, or the manager, or the person who came in off the bench, or just the people who sat on the bench and cheered along, they did those roles really, really well. And it is what made us as strong as we were. So each one of them holds a different set of moments in their hearts, and I hope that they hold on to those and cherish those forever. When I started thinking about the moments, I was trying to put it all in perspective here, and I kind of lumped them together. We had a lot of moments of frustration, and probably one of the earliest moments of frustration was when we went to camp at Wake Forest that year. I came back and was like, we're going to be lucky to win the conference. This isn't good. And I can remember being very, very frustrated for a few weeks there trying to figure everything out and what all there were pages of things that we needed to work on. And so we had that tradition behind us, and we knew we didn't want to let that down. Some other frustrations that came along were we really had two distinct levels on the team. And I was trying to figure out, beating myself up, how are we going to make this work? And what happened was that moment of frustration turned into a moment of leadership, because I turned it over to the seniors and I said, this is your team. And I said, this is your team to take and do what you want to do with it. And they embraced that opportunity. Another real frustrating moment, and the girls can attest to this, is when we got beat one game by Smoky Mountain. We didn't lose the match, but we walked out of there and those girls acted like they had lost their best friend. And I was like, I'm thinking, okay, we won the match. And Alicia actually came up to me and she said, that was awful. And I was just like, we won. And she said, that was awful, and we should have never dropped a game, and we won't do that anymore. And again, I don't know that we did, but if I can recollect, I don't think that if we dropped another game that it was more than one for the rest of that season. So another defining moment when frustration turned around and did something well for us. And of course, probably the biggest frustration for us is that we've got a 1 sitting over there in that column. We went to Inca, and the reality is we really didn't lose that match because we know that they pretty much cheated us out of a couple of points, and their scorekeeper was the home book, and they won the battle when we went back to look at that. So that was a frustrating moment, but it also humbled us and let us move forward and do some other things with that. There were moments of courage, in the season, and like Coach White's talked about, working with 16, 17-year-old kids, they don't always make the best choices, but we found ourselves in a little bit of a predicament, or some of them found themselves in a little bit of a predicament, that they had made a mistake. But instead of hiding and trying to keep that away from me, those girls had the courage to come and say, I messed up. I'm willing to take whatever you're going to do to me so we can move forward. And at the time, I'm sure for them, they pretty much thought that it was the worst thing that could have ever happened to them. But what I say to them now is, thank you for the courage that you were willing to show at that moment. And it wasn't an easy ride for the next few weeks, but we did move forward, and you're better people for having done that. There was also another moment of courage that I'll get to in a little bit later, talking about Kayla Myers, when she actually had the courage, and I'm not real sure it was courage or insanity, to confront me about a decision that I had made, but I'll describe that a little bit later. There were so many moments of intensity, from the Lauren Manley double-fisted yeah, and the Kayla Crawley sway, and the verbal exchanges that went back and forth between a completely competitive and brutally honest bunch of girls that I worked with that year. At one point, I honestly thought that Kayla Crawley and Alicia were going to fight over whether they had passed 9 perfect passes or 10. That they truly were like going at it, and I just kind of eased away from that to let them figure that one out themselves, but they did. But again, a defining moment of demanding perfection from one another. And the intensity of the battles that we ensued all the way through the playoffs, even though we dominated throughout that, it wasn't easy. Didn't come without moments of adversity. We started the season, and I had taken a non-setter and was making her a setter. I had a young lady who had seemed like she'd grown up and was a 6-foot monster that we were moving positions. So we had a lot of shuffling around, and we had lost a great senior class that year before, so we had to redefine ourselves, and they were able to do that. We also started that season without Coach Schuler. Coach Schuler had some surgery done, and when she finally did make her way back to us, her mouth was wired shut. So she was just about useless as an assistant coach for a few weeks. Sorry, Coach Schuler, but it was the truth. But we, again, once she could talk, things got much better. And then late in the season, at a pivotal point in the season, we actually lost 2 girls to ankle injuries. Both of them, one the starting right side and the other the backup right side. And so we had to shift everything. We had to turn around and try to figure out how we were going to put in a new offensive and defensive system in a single day. There were moments of deceit. There's probably more of these that I don't know about, and I really want to keep it that way, so if you know any, just don't tell me. One in particular was the day before the state championship game when we went to Lenoir-Rhyne to practice, and I'm just running practice like normal, kind of excited because we were back at where I played and all those kinds of things. Well, later on I found out that Kayla Crawley is like sick with a fever, and they were trying to get her some medicine that day, and they kept that away from me. But I kind of held a secret of my own. We at Wake Forest had the opportunity to, one of the coaches that was from down there was from Manio, who played Pender County. So I called him when we were getting ready to play, and he had seen us play. He had seen us play bad because we didn't play well at Wake Forest. And I asked him, I said, how are we going to match up? And he said, Coach, you don't have a single thing to worry about. You will be fine. And I kept that secret to myself, and I didn't really think anything about it until I let it out of the cat out of the bag one day, and Coach Manley went, you knew that? You didn't tell me that? I've worried this whole time, and you didn't tell me that? So there were moments of deceit as well. I can't count the number of times that there was so much fun and exciting. This was an incredibly playfully mean group. They were also a very touchy-feely group. They genuinely enjoyed being around each other. You saw them all the time going out and doing things together. One of the funniest moments that I can remember is at the actual state championship game in Game 3 when we were fixing to win. The people on the bench were strategically trying to figure out who they were going to run out and hug so that they didn't look stupid when the game was over and everybody was celebrating. So, that's pretty smart, but very funny. Another one of the most exciting moments is when we beat Raleigh Charter at home and the crowd rushed onto the court and we were celebrating, and there were so many emotions. There were tears of joy, and the energy in the gym that night was just absolutely electric, just showing you what kind of support this community had for us all along the way. But aside from all that, I do feel like there were some moments that defined us and symbolized who we were throughout the entire season. And they were moments of leadership, teamwork, commitment, and faith. That summer, after we had started preseason, somewhere along the way, those seniors got together and they decided that they were winning state. And it was a non-negotiable. There was nothing going to stop them. And they chose a new word for our huddle. And we have been doing the 212, which is the 212 degrees. If you've never seen that, it's a great little video, inspirational video. But they wanted something different. And they chose the word dominate. And it actually is on the inside of our rings. And I don't think that they could have chosen a word that was more appropriate and more powerful than that word. And we said it every time we broke the huddle, the word dominate. And we played our entire season living up to that motto. Another moment, I challenged the seniors to make the team better. I spoke about that earlier, but I told them, I said, I don't want any excuses. Some of those seniors weren't real patient people. But they embraced it, and they knew that that's what needed to happen, and they did it well. I've mentioned that they were brutally honest. Lauren, Kayla, and Alicia were relentless on Kayla Myers that year. They complained about every set that was not on the dime. And she knew it. And Kayla took it in stride, and she just was trying to learn. Those three girls were like Goldilocks, not so much the three bears, but they were like Goldilocks, and they wanted it just right. And they let Kayla know that often. But one day, when I told you that Kayla had her moment of courage or insanity, we had to shift because we lost our rights, and when I was up on a table hitting balls at them hard. And Kayla just looked up at me from the ground. I'm way higher than her. And she says, "You really think this is going to work?" And she started questioning my decision. I can honestly say that I can't even begin to describe the rage that went through me as a coach. Like, seriously, this 17-year-old kid just asked me that? And I lost it. And I lost it on her. And at that point, I was pretty high up there, so I took the ball and I threw it. And I hit that back wall there where we used to have all the little mascots hanging up. And I couldn't even look at them anymore. I just jumped off the table and I walked to the other end of the gym. And you could have heard a pin drop. And they were scared. Kayla was almost in tears, but I had told her that if she cried, I'd kick her out of the gym. And I got to the end and I turned around. And when I turned around, what I saw was those three that were relentless on her went immediately to her and picked her up and supported her. At that second, I knew that that was a defining moment for our season because they bonded like never before. And at that point, I knew the defense system was going to work because they weren't going to let it fail. And again, that was a huge defining moment for our season. As we built the momentum, we started getting unprecedented crowds in the gym. I mean, the gym was packed. It was electric. Every game we played, we started naming them the seventh man. The crowd was our seventh man because, honest to goodness, they could rattle the opponent's cage like never before, and it was awesome. We actually had a lot of fun listening to see what chants that they would come up with because there was a group of our male students who actually went online looking for chants and cheers to say at volleyball games so that they could do them, and they led it so well. And I think that moment showed up when we were at the state championship game, and of all the schools that were down there, we had the largest crowd and we had to travel the furthest. But the second that Chelsea Burrell walked through that balloon arch and our stands stood to their feet and raised their arms and you heard the whole whoosh sound that went up, it was amazing. And I can't even begin to describe that feeling that was in there because after that, they absolutely rocked that arena. And in today's terms, that was Maroon Strong. When we headed into the playoffs, I knew we needed something. We needed a symbol. So we decided to call it our quest for the golden ring. Well, what's a quest without some symbol of the golden ring? So I went to Coach Manley in the middle of the day and I said, hey, listen, I got to have a dream catcher hoop and it's got to be painted gold by this afternoon's practice. And he said, I'm on it. Where do I go? Where do I have to go to get it? And so he took off and he got it painted for me, and we had it that day. And so what we did was we talked about that very first day going into the playoffs, about the commitment that we were going to make as each individual player and coach to what we were trying to do. And named it the Quest for the Golden Ring, and that ring symbolized for us a lot of things. One, commitment, because if you saw in the picture, we all held it together with our right hand. Nobody was left out of that. It symbolized our unity. And of course, it was a true symbol of our end goal, which was the state championship ring. This dream season was orchestrated by God, with no doubt in my mind. And there were so many moments that I felt like he brushed the tapestry with his colors. And one of those was a set of cards, and I actually left them in my sister's pocketbook when I was over there. But I had these little cards that a friend had given me, and on one side was a Bible verse, and on the flip side of it, when you put it onto the other side, there was like a catchphrase, or just a little words for the day type of thing. And when we went into the last game through the playoffs, I read it to the girls every day. We have one for practice, we had it for the games, but that card on that Friday before we went to the state championship game was Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And on the other side of the card, it said, be fearless. We left this town and we were fearless. Another stroke of faith that happened that year was the fact that the 1A game was the late game. And had that not been the case, one of our players, Kara Little, wouldn't have been able to be a part of that, because her faith requires her to be somewhere until that time. But because of the timing that was orchestrated, she was able to be there. There's a million moments that ensued after the win. Y'all saw one of them. Probably one of my all-time favorites was when Myers fell to the ground after the game was over and continued to lay there. Very funny. When we sat in the restaurant that night, it was so cool because there was just so many community people there that were staying with us. And I really kind of felt like I was having an outer body experience because I was watching everything happen outside. It just seemed like it was outside. But it was so cool to watch that community come together over the accomplishment that this team had had. You know, the ride home, the sirens that let us in, and then when we got to get off the bus and walk down the street, the day that the seniors picked out their ring, and they told me they were picking out the biggest ring, and I was thinking, oh, let's get a nice diamond ring because we were the one and only first state championship, so we wanted to get one single diamond, and they were like, oh, no, Coach, we're getting the biggest ring we can find because when we do like this, they're going to see state championship written across our finger. I had them convinced that they weren't going to get those, but we went ahead and did that anyways. And then the ring ceremony, I felt like it was such a celebration of the history of the program, and Rod has left us, but we did have a team in 1979, and they were conference champions that year. So I think he was a little caught up in their state championship. But we had so many defining moments throughout that season. And all the way to tonight, where you are history makers, and getting inducted into this Hall of Fame is something that you should be so proud of, because I am so proud of you, and I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to work with this group of young ladies, each having their own set of amazing characteristics, and all of them successful now as they have moved on. And I just want to thank this community and thank them and say congratulations to the 2008 1A state volleyball champions and being honored in your defining moment as a history maker tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Blankenship. I just wonder how you and Neil got along during all those days. Both of you coaching at the same time. So anyway, you never see each other. I hear you. All right, now, as I call your name, would each member of that 2008 state championship team please come forward and receive your plaque here tonight? And we want to, of course, recognize the coaches first, as Coach Sonia Blankenship, Coach Janet Schuler, who I understand can speak very well now, and Coach Tiffany Crisp. If these coaches would please come forward. While they're coming forward, Coach White, Coach Blankenship wanted to make it loud and clear that we did have a volleyball team in 1979, and they were conference champions.
Oh, they were?
Okay. Everybody was busy that year without a doubt. Our manager of the team, please come forward as well, and we have some others. Megan Brown, statistician Rachel Kolodsky, some others who were so instrumental, Rianne Cipriano and Kim Duplack. Also, please come forward. And all you folks with cameras and cell phone cameras, yes, please get them ready. And now, you know, one thing I noticed when I was looking at this roster, I'm going to call your numbers out as well. There were 3 girls on this team, all named Chelsea. How unusual is it to have a team with 3 names all the same? All right, here we go. Number 2, speaking of Chelsea, Chelsea Burrell. Number 3, Kara Little. Number 4, Hallie Hyatt. Number 5, Auburn Lowe. Number 10, Megan Hyatt. Number 11, Emily Cook. Number 12, Anna Burns. Number 13, Chelsea Crisp. Number 14, Kayla Myers. Number 15, Jocelyn Barker. Number 20, Heather Stiles. Number 21, Alicia Lambert. Number 22, Chelsea McClure. Number 23, Kayla Crawley. Number 24, Amelia Cooper. It's good to see all the Cooper clan back there. So all those folks come in. It's great to have you here tonight. Nothing more important than family support. Speaking of great family support, number 25, Lauren Manley. And number 32, Carolyn Nosworthy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so proud to present the 2008 first ever female state championship team at Swain County High School, inducted into the 2015 Hall of Fame. Congratulations, ladies. Well, Like Coach Blankenship said, you love each other, so get close together. It's picture time.